Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So let's talk about this thing, all right? So going to the first Guardians of the Galaxy, you have to be honest. There was not a lot of faith or confidence when it came to that movie. There was a lot of people on the internet, crazy, right? But a lot of people on the internet, from hardcore fans to casual fans, that just thought this movie wasn't going to do well. They thought it was going to be the first big, crash of Marvel. Because they thought it was a little bit weird and it wasn't going to appeal to the masses for the most part. And I'm sure James Gunn and, Kevin Feige and Marvel themselves, they all were pretty much fully aware. They were pretty much confident in the movie that they were trying to build up, on top of the fact that they weren't cocky about it. They remained humble because they were fully aware that they probably have a hitter in their hands. They just got to trust the audience. Now, they were probably not completely confident in the audience just to begin with, because as I said, sometimes casual moviegoers can sometimes not like weirder things or different things. They like the norm. And not something that's kind of refreshing usually, as we have pretty much seen in previous years of films. Just years in film just to begin with, centuries even. But that's just pretty much how it is. Now, fast forward the time machine to after the Guardians of the Galaxy release. Everybody loves Guardians of the Galaxy. Everybody's praising this shit. Everybody said it's a breath of fresh air, heartfelt, warming soundtrack. Awesome. Everybody loved the characters from, Rocket Raccoon, whatever, to even Groot, also. Everybody was great. And now, Marvel, Feige, Gunn, they all have the confidence, and now they're going into the cocky territory. With more money comes a little bit more ego, no pun intended, but that is how it is sometimes. Now we got the sequel. So is the sequel good? Is it bad? Is it a filler? Does it just kind of feel like it's not really anything much there? And it just feels like a little bit of a snack to the main course that is pretty much Infinity War. So let's talk about this thing. This thing is pretty good. I think it's a very good movie, but unfortunately, it's a little bit of a flawed film just to begin with. Honestly, I think the biggest compliment you can kind of send this movie's way is pretty much that it's a very cocky and confident sequel. And I think that's good, and that's a bad thing just to begin with. I think the movie was fully confident as to what they had, what worked, what didn't work just to begin with. But now I feel like they know what works, so now they're getting a little bit too cocky about it just to begin with. And I feel like that's one of the problems about Volume 2. The cockiness about what worked is in here a lot. And unfortunately, it kind of ruins the film. And that's pretty much basically the humor. There's a big portion of the film, obviously, that dives with humor. And that's great. I have no problem with humor. I like to laugh in a movie every now and then. But there's a point in time for humor. And I feel like sometimes the humor was just so much in your face that it kind of felt forced. It didn't feel as natural as in the first one, which is unfortunate. But that sometimes can be the case with comedy. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. Don't get me wrong. I laughed quite a bit in this movie, It's not like I stood deadpan like at an Amy Schumer stand-up routine, but I thought it was actually pretty hysterical. There's a lot of moments where these characters get their moments to shine, and comedic moments or action moments, and that's actually great to see. Just to begin with, I just feel like sometimes the movie does feel like it squanders a bit on a specific thing. Some things seem like they take forever to kind of just progress through when it comes to a joke, or some jokes just seem like they don't land at all, whatever it may be. But they use what worked so much in the first one, from humor to whatever you thought worked in the first one, they just shove it right in your face more, and then sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's the problem sometimes of a sequel. Now, when it comes to the story of Guardians of the Galaxy, I do think that the humor also kind of sinks into that a little bit too. I think it takes a while. Look, it's fun seeing the Guardians kind of riff on each other, play, banter, whatever it may be. But there comes a point in time where you have to kind of say to yourself, wait a minute, what exactly is the story of this thing? Because it takes a while for the story to say. Honestly, it seems like James Gunn pretty much was basically telling me, hold on, wait your fucking turn. Story's coming up soon, but enjoy this nice little joke right here. That's basically what it kind of seemed like. And that's not a bad thing, per se, if the story's kind of taking a little bit of a backseat, because you have to have interesting characters. And that's where I think Guardians of the Galaxy 2 succeeds the same way as Guardians of the Galaxy just to begin with. The characters are fantastic. Everybody's likable. Everybody's back in game to play. No half-ass lazy performances. Even though Karen Gillan is a little bit, she's all over the place sometimes. And that's basically the case. Zoe Saldana is great. And I think they actually give Zoe Saldana a lot more to do in this one. Drax is great. Now, don't get me wrong. Drax the Destroyer would be awesome. But I feel like sometimes in this movie, I see more of Drax the comedian. Which is a little bit of a problem, because if you actually read stuff on Drax, you pretty much know, that's a little bit different, but nonetheless, he's still cool. Rocket's great. Yondu's fantastic. I did like Yondu and Rocket. I thought they was actually pretty good. Baby Groot, I don't give a fuck if you're a 35-year-old man, if you're a 55-year-old man. If they made Baby Groot the toy, which I believe they are, you're probably going to buy that shit, simply put. They might look at you like you're crazy in Toys R Us, but you could probably just be like, I'm just buying it for kids, But that actually sounded creepy. But nonetheless, we'll move on. look, like I said, the characters are all great. Everybody's having a fun time. And I liked it, the fact that even though these Guardians are kind of like in space or whatever it may be, James Gunn has a good take on making these characters grounded in the sense of bringing them to a human level with their relationships with other people, on top of just the themes of family just to begin with. And I feel like that's where Guardians of the Galaxy 2 really does work the best, when they kind of bring it down to the emotionalness of the family themes and just to begin with, and just overall shit that we can all find relatable in some sort of way. And I feel like that's where it kind of excels in. Now, when it comes to Kurt Russell, or particularly any veteran actor that's kind of coming on board this franchise, from Glenn Close, John C. Reilly, to Stallone to Kurt Russell, they kind of feel like they're not really doing that much. The thought of Kurt Russell as Chris Pratt's dad is very, very interesting. The idea of Kurt Russell seen as Chris Pratt's dad is very, very interesting. Seeing it on screen is not that interesting, unfortunately. And I feel like that's the big problem of the entire movie. Look, there's some good stuff there, and there's some funny moments, and it actually works very well for Chris Pratt and Kurt Russell. I'm sure everybody wanted him to be the dad. And it works, but it's not that overly engaging, honestly. And I feel like the movie does kind of take its time. There are some pacing problems that I really did kind of experience, but I do think that they stepped it up when it came to the action. I think James Gunn really stepped it up on the world building spectacle. Like I said, it's a lot more cocky and confident. If you thought the world building was great in the first one, awesome. I think it's a lot more better in this one, where you see a lot of cool set pieces, a lot of cool monsters, creatures, whatever it may be. The world is fully established here, I feel like, compared to the first one. And that's actually one of the better things that I thought this film actually did better than the first. Now, I don't think it's better than the first one by no means, but by no means am I saying this one is shitty. I think it's actually a very good sequel. It's just that you should probably manage your expectations, because this is probably not going to blow you away completely. Like, the soundtrack is fantastic. Does it rival the first one? I'll leave that up to you. But nonetheless, it's still a pretty great soundtrack. Fleetwood Mac, you know. It is what it is. But like I said, I think Guardians of the Galaxy does a good enough job at giving you these character relationships, bringing it down to a human, grounded level, and making them seem relatable, on top of the fact that you actually have a pretty fun, entertaining movie that never takes itself too seriously. But unfortunately, when it does, that kind of makes the tone shift a bit. And I feel like it makes the movie feel like it's a little bit off, and unfortunately, that's a bit of a problem. Guardians of the Galaxy wants to be kind of fun and vibrant sometimes, and then sometimes wants to be a little bit serious. Now, it does kind of stagger a little bit, I would say that. Not a big problem per se, but it does stagger, and then by the time it actually finishes off, I think it actually is very emotionally rewarding. I think it gets to that point where it's not completely, taking the audience for granted on this fun ride, and it doesn't try to just joke around a lot. It actually competes for a very progressive ending, and I think that's actually one of the biggest highlights of Guardians. Now, this is not something, I do feel like the movie does feel a little bit like it's just a middle of the road, like a pit stop, or like a snack to like the big main event, which is Infinity War, which is obvious, but nonetheless, like I said, I think you're going to get your money's worth if you really are a big fan of Guardians, but I think you should also manage your expectations. Baby Groot, like I said, we'll just bring up Baby Groot real quick. Adorable. That's it. I don't use the word adorable in real life, but I'm going to use it right here. That's just simply put. But like I said, you got fun characters, you got a very fun and fast-paced, energetic ride, and you got a filmmaker that is pretty confident in the world it's building on top of the characters that it's building, and it's pretty great. It's funny, but it's not hysterical, if you know what I mean. But nonetheless, the movie is fully there. The villain's not necessarily, standoutish, but it's fine. I get it, complaining about a Marvel villain is about as cliche as a cool guy walking away from explosions, but it is what it is. It didn't bug me because, like I said, this movie, the franchise is about the people. It's not about the story per se, even though it should be one. But it's not about the story per se. It's about the people and the situations that they are in. And for that, I can't really, complain about it too much. People get explored more. Everybody's background gets explored more. And that's basically all I can really say about it without spoiling anything. So that's all you can pretty much say about Guardians of the Galaxy. You're going to pretty much get a very entertaining enough ride. Yes, you may get a little bit disappointed if you have this sequel pretty much in high regards, but I say manage your expectations, and I think you should be okay, like any movie, so therefore you don't be disappointed. Now, there are a lot of things brought over, like I said, from the first one, and some of them feel forced, but nonetheless, they pretty much hit their mark. Now, overall, I say you can go see this thing, just as I said, manage your expectation, I think you should be fine, but as I said, it's your wallet, it's your money, it's your opinion, it's your thought, and that's mine. Comment, subscribe, and like. I'm Chris Smith. Share this video if you can, and I'm signing out.